it's Shawnee. Welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about fall or autumnal palettes. I've seen a lot of people doing videos on their favorite fall palettes and things like that, so I figured I would jump in on the trend. Now, I, like some of you or a lot of you, wear my palettes all year round. I don't necessarily separate them into fall, summer, winter, spring, blah, blah. I just wear what I want to. But I decided to challenge myself a little bit and see what I have that I think lean a little bit more towards fall. Now, my first real experience of fall was in grad school in Missouri. Like, in California and LA, like the leaves on the palm trees don't change. So the first time I saw like leaves changing and things like that was in Missouri. And then when I moved to the DMV area, I was like, oh my gosh, like there are seasons. Now, I do feel like fall only lasts a good 2 weeks, but I love wearing my boots and sweaters during that time. So I kind of went off of like leaves and the colors and everything to sort of figure out what fall is. I often lean towards like oranges and reds and like browns. Those are the main ones that I lean towards for fall. So let's talk about some of these palettes. The first palette I thought of is the Melt Cosmetics Amor y Mariposa palette. Love and Butterflies. I feel like most of these colors can give you a good fall look. Like you've got your oranges and reds, and then you've got the greens, and then you can deepen things up with these purples and these like muddy shades over here. So I definitely feel like this is a very fall palette, and I like it. I think it's the biggest melt palette that they have released. I think it's really good. Also, the shades are removable, so you can take them out and rearrange, or you can also put them into your own magnetic palette. And I know there's a lot of like love and story behind this palette in terms of why the brand created it. And yeah, I really like this one. It's one of my favorite melt palettes. Now, shall we stick with melt for a little bit? Let's. Another palette is their 27 palette. I think this is another very fall palette. It's a lot of neutral shades. There's some depth in there with some of the browns, but you've also got orangey brown shades, a couple of shimmers in here that go with pretty much every shade in the palette. And I think even the packaging just looks like fall, you know? I think this is definitely a fall sort of everyday palette that you could use. I think you can do things that are work friendly or office friendly, and also you can deepen things up and do like a little seductive look for nighttime. Now, I would be remiss if I did not mention the Gemini palettes. This is Gemini 2, and I think, again, this is a very, like, pretty fall palette with the greens and the rust shades. I think it's just really pretty. I like it a lot. Initially, I was like, I don't know about the greens and the reds together, but I definitely think you can create some really nice shades and looks with this palette. And I actually like that they kind of switched it up and added a bit more of that rust color in there to go with the green shades. Speaking of rust, I have a lot of melt palettes. This is the Melt Rust palette. Again, I think this is super fall. You've got the like dirty orangey yellows and the browns, again the rust shades. I think this is a great fall palette. I would say this is maybe a deeper version of the 27 palette, so you can get a bit more of that smoky look. And yeah, I really like this one too. This one and the 27 one are probably two of my favorite melt palettes. Now, I do have to say that I liked melt back in the day when they had the stacks. If you remember, let me know. But they had the stacks and then they came out with the palettes. I don't think their palettes have gotten as much love as the stacks because the formula is a little different and not as stable. But I've had an okay experience with the melt palettes. I just liked the stacks a little bit more. I thought they were kind of cool and innovative at the time, but I think people wanted palettes, and so they phased those out and brought in the palettes. So that is the Rust palette. Now the last one from Melt is the original Gemini. And so again, this has a lot of that grungy fall kind of color story with the greens and the yellowy oranges. I do appreciate that there's a black in here to deepen up your looks or to do like a winged liner. And the shimmers in here, there are only 2 that you get to work with. The shimmers in here are not my faves. I do like the palette though, but I would say I pull out the 27, the Rust, and maybe even the Muerte palette the most, along with Amor y Mariposa over these other ones. All right, we're gonna let Melt chill out and we're going to move into Viseart. So one of the first palettes I thought of is this Viseart Neutral Matte palette. This is an all matte palette, of course, and I just think that a lot of these deeper shades would look great during the fall. Also like fall transitioning into winter. For winter, I often associate that with like blues and silvers and icy colors. And I think you start to get that with this blue here and even this brighter kind of magenta. But I feel like this is a good like staple palette that gives you a few pops of color. So it's definitely like an everyday sort of palette and a great one to wear during the fall. I'm really drawn to this like orangey shade here, this like maroon shade. Just a lot of these I think are great fall colors. And the other one from Viseart that I think encompasses fall even more, this is the Dark Matte palette. And there is that. I feel like leaves look like this, right? Like when they start changing color, I feel like this is a leaf. All these shades together. So I feel like this one, the Dark Matte, is even more so a fall palette than the neutral one. This is a great palette to deepen up some looks, pair with some shimmers. Also, I really like doing all matte looks with Viseart just because their mattes blend so well with one another. Okay, so I've got a few Natasha Denona palettes that I think are pretty fall themed. The first one is the Sunset palette. I really enjoy this palette. This makes me think of like fall sunsets, right? Like you've got all the shades in here. You've got the red, you've got the yellow, you've got the red and the yellow. You've got like some oranges. This to me just makes me think of a fall sunset. Right, sunset, a fall sunset, just really pretty, very like vibrant colors, very just like cool colors, those like reddish orangey shades, love it. Okay, one of my favorite palettes from her. And with Sunset comes Sunrise. This is the Midi palette size in Sunrise. Again, this makes me think of sunsets and sunrises in the fall, especially just with these beautiful colors just across the sky. Very similar colors to the sunset, with the orange and like the deep orange, the yellow, a little bit of red in there. Yeah, there you go. And the other Natasha Denona palette I thought of is the Bronze palette. I know some people equate this with summer, but for me, I feel like this is another great fall palette, especially for the shimmers. I really enjoy the shimmers in this palette a lot, and you've got quite a few of them, which is great. I think it would be good to pair some of these shimmers with maybe some of the mattes in the Viseart palette. Like I think that would go together really well. You'd get some cool like combinations with that, and you can get some great fall looks. You can also get some summer looks, spring looks, winter, all the seasons you can get looks. But I do think of fall more with this Bronze palette. Okay, now let's go on to Nomad. One of their newer palettes is the Okavango Safari palette, and I definitely think this is very fall themed. Again, when I think of fall, I think of greens and oranges and yellows and reds, and here they are. So I enjoyed this palette a lot. The one shade that gives a little bit of problem is this one here, Roaring Lions. I love this shimmer. Sometimes it does get hard pan, so if you are going to use it, you just want to make sure that you remember that and use like a spoolie or some tape, your finger, a spatula, whatever. Sometimes you have to just scratch off a little bit of that top layer to make it work, but I enjoy this. I also like the way that Nomad lays out their palettes. Like, I think you could just go across the rows to create looks. I think you can also do like quads. You can do columns. I think if you struggle with like putting shades together and stuff, consider Nomad. I think Natasha Denona also does it, where they sort of map out things for you, where it's pretty easy to kind of pick a color, and the one next to it, below it, or above it is going to go with that initial color that you choose. The other palette that screams fall to me, and I think also was created during the fall, is the Nomad Hudson Valley palette. This is one of my faves. You've heard me talk about my meet cute with Jan Van, and we both love this palette. Jan has done some gorgeous looks with this palette. I just really like the shades in here. They're very rich, which I appreciate because they show up a lot better on deeper skin tones. You've got some of these greenish or grayish greens over here, and the names are also very fall themed. So you've got like apple cider donut, which sounds, whew, that sounds so good. You've got foliage trail, apple picking, leaf, what is that? Leaf peeping? Yeah, leaf peeping, wine harvest. I could go for some wine and an apple cider donut. Fall festival, corn maze. Girl, I have been through a corn maze in Missouri. Child, I was like, we need to hurry up because, you know, in the movies, in like corn mazes and the scary movies, the black person goes first. All right, so let's round up with two more palettes. The one I actually used today for this kind of punchy orange, red, gold look is the Surge palette from Blend Bunny. Now, I don't think the whole thing is fall, but I do feel like there are some very bold fall colors in here. So like this row here and this one as well, and then maybe even the green row there, or column, I'm sorry. I think those are very much fall themed. And also I just really like this shimmer right here. I love like a gold, an orangey gold shimmer. And this one I used that shimmer. I also used this neon shade here. Hopefully you can see it. And then I used this shade Juicy, and I went in also with these two maroon deeper shades. So I don't think the whole palette is fall, but I do think there are a lot of like groups of colors that could definitely give you a really fall, very much fall themed look. And then the last palette I could think of is the Colored Rain Rebellious Nudes palette. This is a great nude palette. I think it's great for a variety of skin tones. If you are lighter on the color scale, you want to go in a bit lightly or softer with these shades because they do have a lot of pigment. As you go deeper onto the color spectrum, if you're my skin tone or deeper, these just look so good. I definitely think all of the mattes are very much fall themed. The shimmers just bump it up a little bit. These shimmers are actually like multi-chromes. So whenever I use them, I'm like surprised, like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. I really like this like orangey shade here. Like I enjoy this row right here, and I really like these two shades as well. The black really helps to deepen things up, and then popping on one of the shimmers. Actually, I like all of the shades in this palette actually. I think Colored Rain doesn't get as much like kudos as they should. I feel like I say that every time I talk about them, but I really enjoy their products. You should try to get one of the palettes and see what you think. The other one from them is Safari Rain. I used to have that one, and I gave it to like my little cousin, but that one has more like greens and oranges in it. It's really, really nice. They also have, they're the one place that I found the blush I was looking for. They have an orange blush. I should have used that today. This one is called Spicy. It's really good. There's some pan there, and it's a large size, and it just looks really good when you put it on. Let me try to put a little bit on. So I just typically tap into it. It's pretty pigmented. And I think orange blushes can look so good on deeper skin. And this is a blush that I often use in fall and in summer. I don't go too hard with it, but like, take me to a pumpkin patch because I'm serving pumpkin realness. So yeah, those are the ones I could think of off the top of my head. I'm sure there are other ones. I know that I have a lot of fall themed singles. Like, I'm pretty sure you can let me know if you want me to go through it. I cannot promise because I have a lot of singles. I can't promise, but definitely if you want to bring in some like seasonal makeup and stuff, consider getting some singles. Or even like the Danessa Myricks Color Fix. Like, this is Carrot Top, very much a fall color because I think orange is just a fall color apparently. But yeah, consider bringing in some singles if you don't want to get entire palettes. And then if you bring in the singles, you can really focus on the shades that you want and avoid the ones that you don't. Oh, did I bring that one? There was one more and I actually forgot to talk about it. The one I forgot to talk about is the Adept Heather Austin palette, which I believe is actually restocking. Now, I do feel like maybe this quad and this quad over here are very much like fall. This is one of my favorite shades right here. It's like this orange sparkly shade, and there are the greens in there. So I do feel like the right and the left half, and maybe not the middle, are really good fall colors. And I do believe Adept is restocking this one, so if you want to grab it, this is probably, this and Plain Jane Remastered, I think are my favorite Adept Cosmetics palettes. Whew. Okay, let me know if you have any of these. Let me know if you're aware of the palettes I have and if there are ones that I maybe missed. I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah. Let me know some of your fall palettes, the ones that you kind of pull out during this time. Even if you kind of use your palettes year round like I do, let me know if there are some in the comments that you kind of tend towards during this time of year. I think that is it. I hope that some of this was helpful. I also hope that you are continuing to take care of yourself. Please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And once you're done with that, leave me a comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.